What's up? I'm Dan Fradenburgh, and this is for FIGGERRIDOUT.com. I have John Ballenger here with me today. His job was really exciting, and we're going to get right into that. But before that, John, how you doing today?
Man, Dan, I am doing awesome. After we got those, those issues worked out, we're on a roll now. So I'm ready for this.
Exactly. And a nice little switch of platforms. So let's give a background here. If you've never watched a FIGGERRIDOUT.com dream job interview, here's what it's all about. I have people on who they've done something a little bit unusual. Sometimes it is directly job related. I had Brian Cuban on this show, who is Mark Cuban's brother. He was on talking about sobriety. But the main thing is, I want to know if somebody wants to make a big turn and then finally realize their dreams, do that thing that was in the back of their head and they just never gave themselves the opportunity to do it. Well, how do you get there? And then, of course, also because I want to pay it forward, and my own career path was, it had lots of zigs and zags. And so I'm aware that sometimes, it's just not in the cards for people. So in every episode of FIGGERRIDOUT.com dream job interviews, I ask, how do you get there if you have no friends, no family, and no cash? Is it possible? What kinds of personality traits need to be in place or cultivated before that's going to work? But the reason why John definitely qualifies as having a dream job, you can see the pictures in the background. John, you've flown, how many presidents have you flown now?
Just two. So Trump for 4 years and Biden for my last year in the squadron. Yeah, his first year of presidency.
Excellent. And so that's those are photos. That's you flying in front of Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, that's me flying Donald Trump up to Mount Rushmore for a 4th of July celebration, and then this one over here is my last flight in the squadron, and it was picking up Biden and taking him to Wilmington, Delaware. So big moments.
Excellent. So my first question then, it has to do with the order of magnitude of candidates. So I hear that the clown school that Steve-O went to is more difficult to get into than Harvard. And so you never really know how difficult it is. But about how many people are trying to be the pilot of Marine One? Do you have some sort of...
Well, that's a great question, Dan. So I'll tell you, I'll break it down like this. We've got 75 pilots in the squadron. Probably about 40 of them fly the V-22 Osprey, which doesn't actually carry the president. So the other 35 are white tops flying the aircraft that carry the president. And those 35, every year about 6 or 7 of them get picked to be a Marine One. And so, it gets pretty narrow at the top, but I was blessed and fortunate enough to get picked as one of those 6 or 7 for my last 2 years in the squadron. So it was really cool privilege.
Excellent. And are you able to share if you're one of that half dozen, about how many flights are we talking per year? Is it like close to 100? Is it closer to like 6, 10, 12? What sort of numbers of times would it be?
Yeah, it's probably, we do a ton of flying. So we're flying all over the US, all over the world. The actual flights that we're carrying the president per year would probably range in the 30 to 40 number.
And so you mean each individual one would be in that range, or?
Yeah, so probably 30 to 40 times we're carrying them in the aircraft from either the South Lawn to Camp David, or South Lawn to Andrews, or even across the U.S. or the world, from the location where Air Force One lands to where we're taking them to in the aircraft, in Marine One to a smaller landing site. So it's
that's really amazing.
Yeah, we all try to spread load because, as you can imagine, it can wear on the nerves, it can wear on the, just on the stress. So we all kind of mix it up, and everybody's trying to get, the the flights spread across our team.
Okay. So then we already were talking about the size of the talent pool, the number of people who are trying to get in there. What proportion of the people, like what percent of the people who might be candidates just can't seem to put their politics aside and be like, you know, so they might say it's like, oh, there's no way I'm flying for this president or that president or the other thing. Like, is that something that's pretty common, or is it by the time you get there, you're more of the mind like, well, I'm doing this for my country and my country happens to have this president right now. And so, you know, they just are able to put it aside. Like, is that something that,
you know, we're all Marines first. And most of the guys that have gotten up to the presidential helicopter squadron have been in for a good amount of time, 10 years, 12 years. So I would say there is, if there are any, there aren't many people that will get their politics involved with what they are doing and really wear that on their sleeve. So most of the guys recognize they're Marine first. They're doing their job. They're supporting the president, which is just a job that we have in the Marine Corps as Marine pilots in the squadron. So I would say that not many of them let their politics get involved with that job. And we all consider it a huge honor, and it's very humbling to be a Marine and have that responsibility bestowed upon us.
No doubt. But like when you're flying around a president or something like that, you know, I don't know if there's like a convoy, like, you know, if they have like a few different people on the helicopter, but you know, you must have had the feeling it was like, you know, hey guys, can I go with you? You know, it's like, hey, this party's still going. Like, is that something that ever crossed your mind?
Yeah, you know, we do go to some pretty unique places, and man, when you land, I mean, I've been to South Korea, I've been to Paris. Guys have been all over the world, but yeah, when you land and you see them get off, there are some pretty unique places where it's like, man, I would just love to be in the shadows and follow along and see what occurs. But you know, responsibility of getting the aircraft back to safety and getting it back into a hangar and taking care of that and taking care of the Marines that are with us, that falls first. And so our job is to just be the transportation. So we try to do that to the best of our ability and not get involved in any other aspects.
Right. So like when you land or something, it's like y'all need to like watch the car, so to speak. Hey, you stay here, watch the car. Right?
Yeah.
So like, so you're staying in there the entire time, are you? Or
sometimes it's a drop off, and then we go back and we'll wait for the end of the event. Or sometimes, you know, we'll stay in place. If it's a short event, we'll stay on site and just wait until we're called back again. So yeah, unfortunately for us, it is hey, just thanks for the ride. Keep the engines warm, and we'll be back in a little bit.
So what percent of the job felt like basically like a normal job? You know, like I'm sure that like everything I've ever done, any big achievement that I've pulled off, like it's really super duper cool. Like when it first starts, and then, you know, kind of wears off and turns into responsibility or something pretty quickly. But so what percent of the job just felt like a normal job?
Oh man, you know, I would say it's 50-50. You know, there were times where we're just back in Quantico training co-pilots, working on our day job, you know, working on operations or facility management, or, you know, we always have a side job that's in addition to being a pilot. And so that takes up a lot of time. You know, a lot of people think, oh, all you do is fly around for hours on end. Well, the flying portion really only takes up about 20% of our week. So a lot of it is administrative, and a lot of it is just keeping the squadron running and doing the day-to-day things, doing a lot of the planning, doing a lot of the scheduling. But I will say that as soon as you change into your uniform to go pick up the president, it is 100% focus, 100% serious, and we get into that aircraft and we're ready to go with all intentions on being safe and reliable and on time and doing our job to the utmost of our ability. So I think it's, it never does really wear off that you're still in the Marine Corps. You are a Marine and you get to fly helicopters for a living. So you kind of have those pinch me moments, but definitely when you look back and you see, the president getting on board, it brings things back to reality real quick about the gravity of the position that we're entrusted with.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It's the perfect segue to my next question. It really has to do so we did our Chance Encounter interview just last week. So we met each other from the context of being in commercial real estate syndications and deals. And that's a very serious thing. That's people's entire livelihoods. It's actually like groups of people's entire livelihoods in some situations. It really it shouldn't be. You should be very careful with what you put in an illiquid asset. But Figure It Out is pretty much the opposite of serious. Like, it has a lot of serious parts, but this sizzle reel at least. So like, I don't know, like you just saw the sizzle reel. What was that like?
Man, to see these celebrities, one, Gilbert Gottfried, a guy that I kind of grew up watching in different movies, and I couldn't even name the movies that he's in now, but to see him and some of these actors get on and just kind of fumble through your name or fumble through Figure It Out and kind of give you a hard time, man. That to me just put a smile on my face because, so many people take themselves so seriously. And, just like I was saying, part of our job was very serious and very surreal. But man, there were some times where we were just having a good time on a flight back after dropping the president off somewhere, and you get to know these pilots, and they're all great dudes, and there's some actually very comical moments. And so to see that reel of yours brought me back to some of my less serious days in the Marine Corps, where we've got time to kill, and it's a lot of laughter and a lot of comedic relief. So it's good, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Gilbert, he was absolutely amazing. When people don't recognize the name, I usually mention the voice of Iago, the parrot from Aladdin, or the other one that I think most people forget is from Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy. What could I possibly put in this hand that would make you completely forget, right? That kind of stuff. So I'm a bit irreverent. My background is in tech, and that's part of why I did this. But actually, there's some underlying tricks that I was up to that absolutely have to relate to talking to people like yourself, which is being able to tell what's real from what is, manufactured or set up. And the other question is how do you get these people who are presumably strangers to do these super duper weird things? But the other thing that I was up to was trying to get where people, if they saw me and they didn't know me, they figure out if they're going to be a good fit for me or not very, very quickly. And that's the kind of fun part. But it actually brings me as far as spicier stuff for us to include in this interview about, flying on Marine One. I was actually driving around Ottawa yesterday, and I saw a shop that's open, the first time I've ever seen this, that sells hallucinogenic magic mushrooms. And I remember hearing as a teenager, a few of my friends were going oh, well, I want to be a pilot, and so that's why I'm not going to, play with any of the funny stuff or whatever. But what are the I know that the restrictions have kind of changed, or at least I think the interpretation of the effects of things like cannabis and stuff like that on you. But what's the story as far as if you ever had that stuff in your system or drug testing or anything like that? What's the story there?
Dan, I'll let you know right now, I'm probably one of the most boring people in the world when it comes to experimental. And it's probably a good thing, because when I was filling out the drug screening to get into the Marine Corps, it comes to the question, have you tried any drugs? Have you tried marijuana? And I put none, NA, doesn't apply. And my recruiter's kind of like, yeah, come on, man. Like, you can be honest. Let's just put it on there. Let's make sure that, you pass this screening. And I was like, man, I really haven't done anything. And it's kind of funny to watch when the norm is that way, and there is kind of a lower standard, and you haven't partaken. It's interesting to try to convince somebody that you are a little different. And that goes into when I was trying to get into the squadron. They want to know what your online presence is like. They've got to be ready to see, hey, what's this guy, what has his history been like? What is he like in real life? And when you list all the media platforms that you're on, and the only one that I list is LinkedIn, I think I had to list that I was on MySpace, back in the late 90s. But when it's MySpace and LinkedIn, it's like, all right, come on, like, give us your alter egos, give us, those websites that you've been associated with that you're not proud of. It's like, I actually have none. People look at you with a little bit of a side eye because they don't believe that you don't have some TikTok account under a different alias, but it's true.
Right. Right, or a Reddit, or
no drugs and no crazy social media platforms. So
right. Whereas on the other hand, me, I was a guitar teacher in the 90s. So like, if I wanted to say, it's like, no, drugs, never, right? It's like, who's gonna believe that? Like, really, like, sure, I don't know, but that's all fun and games. But my next question has to do with the actual what's the term for things that fly? I forget what you don't say vehicle, you say it's
I mean, we call them aircraft or
aircraft,
birds,
right.
or
right. So
worldly things.
Worldly things, right? So, but if you won the Powerball personally, and you could get any helicopter, okay, including a duplicate of Marine One, not the paint job or whatever, like, where would Marine One compare? Like, is it the sweetest helicopter out there, or like, are there nicer ones? Like, did you have a chance to fly like Apaches or anything like that? Or
so Marine One is a pretty sweet setup. I mean, there's a reason that this helicopter's been flying since the mid 60s. One of our helicopters have been H3, and it's transported so many presidents, and the interior is pretty sweet. It's pretty quiet in there, and it's pretty plush. The 60, the other aircraft, the one that I flew right here over Mount Rushmore, it's a little tighter inside, but it's a little quicker, a little bit more fun to fly, a little bit more power. Not the most comfortable inside, but I'll tell you, the aircraft that we're upgrading to, so both models that I flew are getting up. So the aircraft that we currently fly are being upgraded as we speak to what's called the S-92, and it's an off-the-shelf Sikorsky aircraft that you probably see in some movies, but it flies back and forth to oil rigs and things like that. But it is a pretty sweet aircraft inside, all new interior, all new upgrades. And that's probably what I would want for my fleet if I could pick and choose. But I mean, every aircraft I've flown in the Marine Corps has been pretty awesome and pretty fun to fly.
So I imagine the big difference between the different helicopters is like agility and responsiveness. You mentioned like how luxurious the one is, so it's nice and quiet, like a Rolls Royce, or high-end Mercedes, that sort of thing. So like how does that fit in, like agility?
Yeah, I mean, I flew in this here in the middle. I flew this CH-53, so it carries just a bunch of Marines in the back, and we carry actually up to 55. But for its size, it's about 100 feet long. For its size, it's super agile. And I would say that every Marine Corps helicopter's got its pros and cons, but they're all very they're all very capable platforms. And so those are the 3 I flew. And agility, speed, the capabilities. None of these aircraft really shot anything, but we've got, our assault aircraft that come in, and they've got the capability of carrying rockets and large caliber machine guns. So they're just all, every Marine Corps helicopter pilot is going to tell you that his helicopter is the best, because we really enjoy what we do and we really enjoy what we fly. So I don't think you'll find a Marine Corps helicopter pilot out there that says that some other platform that he's not flying is better than his.
That's funny. It's like teachers and their students. Oh, my students are the best. That's really funny. So then the next question then, before we get into the no friends, no family, no cash part, is background checks. And of course, my Cameo reel is hilarious for that, because like me as a digital security person, that's what I noticed is that, if I'm the type of person where it's like I won't bother, like Googling somebody, finding out their background until they really get going. There aren't many people who will. So like, I don't know if you have anything to comment on that. I got a next pong for that after, but like, as far as like checking people out, looking at their background, you mentioned
the background check is very important. And they do a great job of going back to your second grade, teacher and asking them what you were like in school and your best friends, and figuring out, what underlying personality traits are you not presenting while you apply for this job. And so it's very deep, and they go into financials, and they look at your friends and family and ask them a lot of, interesting questions. But they do a great job of screening out who is allowed to come in. In fact, the first time I applied was in 2009, and I didn't get accepted because I had too many speeding tickets on my record. So they told me, wait, 5 to 7 years and reapply, and then get back to us. And so I waited 6 years, reapplied, and fortunately got accepted that time. So it's a deep dive into who you were.
Let's get back to the main thing that was intended for the audience, which is that if you have no friends, no family, no cash, a lot of dream jobs are basically impossible. I know that I've heard some clinical psychologists say that the military won't be able to take you for anything if your IQ is under 80. Because they found it's like you just won't be effective at what you do. As a pilot, I'm sure the IQ has to be, fairly high. But like, as far as traits go, what about like vision? Like, do you have to be 20/20 or better, or what can you say as far as things that will just cut you out?
Yeah, I mean, obviously for the Marine Corps, it's the physical restrictions are a little bit more stringent, and they want an individual that comes in a little bit in better shape and ready to go through boot camp and go through the physical rigors that screen out a lot of people. But yeah, vision for pilots is incredibly important. I was blessed with 20/20, but it has to be, I think, close to 20/20 or correctable to 20/20 through LASIK or contacts and stuff like that. So I never had that problem.
No, it's all good. All right, so okay. So that's the vision part, right? But what other things will put you out of the running?
Really, so the squadron is unique in that we pick who is able to come in. So, the pilots that are currently in the squadron will pick the pilots that applied and give them kind of the thumbs up or thumbs down. So, it behooves you to really treat people the way you want to be treated before you're even screened, because guys that are looking at your application will remember the things that you did 5-10 years ago when you were just a normal pilot, when you were just a pilot deploying with them and trying to get the mission done. So if you, quite frankly, were an asshole and you treated people, with ill intent, or you just didn't treat them to the utmost, then that may come back to haunt you, as they will remember that. And kind of find that you're not the right fit to be in this squadron where we're close together,
Mm-hmm.
traveling or in such close contact.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, and then like as far as the money thing, your dream job is one of the few where I don't think that that's a major consideration, just because like you can enlist and it doesn't cost you anything. It's not like you have to have. Well, actually, so do you have to be an officer to be a pilot?
Yeah, you do. So in the Marine Corps, it's a little different than the Army, but only officers will fly or fly any aircraft for that matter. So that just requires either you go straight from college to go through officer candidate school in the Marine Corps, or you can also start enlisted and then go back, get your degree, and then go through the officer program. Either way, but
Mm-hmm.
we only allow our officers to fly.
Okay, and so to be an officer, as you said, you have to have a degree. Do they give preference to some types of degrees?
No, you'll actually find that a lot of our pilots are business degrees or literary
Literature, yeah.
what's the word? Literature
Literature,
majors
yeah.
or history
Right.
majors or some sort of interesting degree where they probably weren't focused on what they truly wanted to do when they were in college, and then they just they graduated and decided the Marine Corps was a better fit.
Yeah, yeah. So will you get any of that? Like they focus on doing like interpretive dance, and that's why they're those poor fine arts degrees people. Just like honestly, we love them. It's the spice of life.
Yeah.
But so that's pretty exciting. So no friends, no family, no cash. You got it. So you got to be friendly, and that's consistent against all of the different careers that I've spoken to. But if there's one thing that you could focus on as far as a particular skill to build, if you want to one day be a pilot for Marine One or otherwise, what skill do you think you should really work on?
For skills, I think, really attention to detail, and being able to see things to fruition, really being focused on the mission at hand and really just propelling yourself and taking that initiative. Those are the skills, I think that really helped me out, even when I was struggling in flight school to just, get some of the basic things down. It was just really stick to it. Stick to what you're trying to do and realize that it's not going to happen always naturally, and it's not always going to happen easily, but being persistent and just doing what it takes to get the end achieved.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I guess my last question to wrap all this up would be about Air Force One, which is that so did you make a decision, say, hey, I like helicopters and that's where I went, or is it just like I guess to fly Air Force One, like are the restrictions simpler or is it more difficult? Like what can you say about that?
Well, it's a pretty easy path. I mean, Air Force One is piloted only by Air Force pilots and fixed wing pilots, and Marine One is only piloted by Marine rotary wing pilots. So, that once you pick a service, that's a pretty easy direction to. So we don't cross. We don't commingle. We don't, share pilots. We pretty much stay in our direct field. So if you're in the Navy, you could be, Blue Angel. And if you're in the Army, I guess you could be a Golden Knight or, something else. But the services kind of delineate which route you're going to go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. And then I guess my next question, and I think it's probably better not to get into specifics. You said you flew for Biden and for Trump. What's something about hanging out with presidents that you think you wouldn't know unless you've done it?
Well, I would say off camera, there's some pretty fascinating people. I mean, they've got they've got some pretty kind attributes, and they're pretty friendly for what we've seen and how we've interacted. But um, yeah, I mean, they are just people too, and they've got advisors that are helping them make decisions. And so, seeing that sometimes they struggle with just, walking and chewing gum at the same time, just like we all do, is pretty cool to see.
Right. So I'm trying to think. This is another really spicy one, and so I'm trying to figure out how to pad it a little bit. But so this is just plain opinion, and I know that, like you mentioned about like having troubles walking, and chewing gum at the same time, it's going to happen. But like I figure that one of the liberties that the media is going to pull is they're going to make any president look less intelligent than they actually are. And I imagine you have to be pretty sharp to get that title. And I know that like this is very anecdotal evidence because you're talking about 2 of them and there's been 46 of them. So like, what's your take on that? Do you think it's possible to become president unless if you're not all that sharp?
Oh man. I think, what you've done previously has projects you in a way that I think develops confidence in the American people. I don't know if I can answer that question.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. It's a tough one for sure. And I don't want you to get yourself in trouble at all. And I think what you're getting at is that like there's no second chance to make a first impression. And so everybody makes their mind up really, really fast on what kind of person the president is. Is that kind of where you're going? Do you think that's
that's
a nice
fair.
place to land?
Yeah, okay. I think they've all done some pretty impressive things in the past, and that helps propel them into the place where they currently are. But yeah, they're fascinating individuals, definitely. And I don't want to give this false impression that we've got this buddy relationship with them, because we're definitely just bus drivers getting them to and from where they need to go. So, we get a quick, hey, how you doing? And thanks for the flight. And, maybe a pat on the shoulder. And then maybe a little downtime when we see them up at Camp David or something. But for the most part, we're just trying to do our job as Marines and do it well and do it to the best of our ability without fail. So,
That's excellent.
Marines, Marine One pilots, political, and we're just trying to do our job.
I love it. Well, thank you very much for this, John. I think that this has been an amazingly informative bit of content for anybody in the audience who wants to achieve something like that. If you want to see more stuff like that, FIGGERRIDOUT.com is one of the best places to look at. Further down, it has more of these dream job interviews. But I only have one other thing to say. It's not to you, John. It's just like back in the Chance Encounter. It's a public service announcement, which is, if you've been watching this episode and you're like, why do my eyes hurt so much? It's like there's fire and getting like headaches and all that kind of stuff. It's probably because there's a hideous red subscribe button down there. And what it does is it means that that YouTube might actually pay for these videos instead of me, and that would be really, really great, so I can keep on talking to really interesting people like John. So thanks again for joining me, John. This has been fantastic.
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you so much.